kind of crazy that just like that, the NFL season is over and now we have to wait another 6 months for football to return. But man, oh man, was this season good. Filled with a lot of wacky storylines and old and young players balling out. And who could have guessed that at the end of it all, Sam Darnold was going to be a Super Bowl champion? Now, as what's probably going to be said in the title, Darnold completely rewrote his legacy this season. I mean, he was already doing a pretty good job last year, turning into a Pro Bowler and leading Minnesota to 14 wins while playing really well. But there was still a lot of doubt after how he ended the season on those last 2 games. And that's a major reason why he didn't return to Minnesota. Now, of course, every Vikings fan is probably pretty upset right now that they got this instead of this, but sometimes that's just the way the cookie crumbles. And of course, I know this story has been told 1,000 times by now, and it's being pushed even harder after them winning the Super Bowl, but it truly is one of the most encouraging stories in not just the history of football, but sports. And Darnold will be an inspiration for future players to look at for a reason not to give up or quit. Now, for the Super Bowl itself, I don't want to pretend like Darnold played great, because he didn't. He was decent, but not anything special. I think his best attribute he had this game was making the Patriots miss a ton. I mean, he avoided a lot of sacks and avoided a lot of lost yardage, something that New England couldn't say the same for. His real legacy game, though, this playoff run was the NFC Championship game against the Rams, which, side note, I think was the real Super Bowl. Just the way he was balling out, he was just absolutely on fire that game. And honestly, no matter what Darnold does the rest of his career, he'll always have this ring to fall back on. Something that a lot of quarterbacks, including the ones from his own class, can't claim. Now, I'm pretty sure Sam Darnold took his ghosts and gave them to Drake May because he was flat out awful. There's no working around it. Yeah, I know he had a shoulder injury, and yes, his O-line was getting stomped the whole game, but even then, he should have been able to make something happen with a lot of these plays, and he just didn't. I mean, this is one of the worst interceptions a professional quarterback could throw in the Super Bowl, especially given the circumstances that New England still had a glimmer of hope of coming back, and this pretty much sealed the deal. Now, despite how bad May was, I do want to highlight that he did show some fight back and forth. Part of it was confidence, part of it was that he needed to have urgency. Although he did have 2 turnovers in the quarter, again, including this, I'd argue it was the best quarter of the game for him. And honestly, I really do think people need to get off May's case for his performance. Yes, he was bad, and there's no defending that for this specific game, but discrediting him as a player is just flat out ridiculous. The fact is that this is a 23-year-old quarterback in his 2nd season. He was a single vote away from being the MVP. Seriously, who voted for Justin Herbert? And led his team to the Super Bowl. You should never have the settling mentality of, we'll be back, because nothing is guaranteed in sports, but I also don't believe in the pessimistic view that believes it is impossible either. Calling May a fraud or a fake when he did more in a year 2 than most players have done in their entire career is just flat out insane. Another critique of this game that I've seen a lot of people saying is that this was a boring game and arguably the worst Super Bowl ever, but I just think that's not true. It was highly defensive, but not ugly. A bad game, and I know it's ironic including the Patriots again, is the Pats vs. Broncos or the Pats vs. the Texans. I think those 2 games were genuinely ugly games. I mean, you saw CJ Stroud, he was blind in that game. He couldn't see. And, Stidham, everyone obviously was joking, ain't no party like a city party before the game, but Stidham was not great. Those are just 2 rough games and genuinely ugly games. This Super Bowl was not an ugly game. It was just 2 defenses exerting their wills on opposite offensive lines and just laying it out. And that's not something that I think should be suggested as bad. Now, for the casual audience, of course, it's not going to be as good as an offensive game. And I agree, an offensive game is more fun than a defensive game. But I don't see the logic that, okay, because this game was highly defensive and it wasn't super high scoring and the quarterbacks weren't playing good, this is a bad game when defenses showed out. And I just want to take a moment to say that both of these defenses deserve a ton of recognition for their performances. This Pats defense, man, has just been elite throughout the entire thing and is a massive reason why they're here. And specifically, I want to give credit to Christian Gonzalez because he saved New England's life several times before the game got out of hand in the 4th. And there's nothing really to say about the Seahawks defense, man. They were just insane. They sacked May 1,000 times. They were bullying his offensive line. There's nothing they could do, and that's how talented this defense is, man. And I also want to give credit to one last player, and that's Kenneth Walker, who I think was the only dominant player in this game. Other players were good, but Kenneth Walker was the only one that was great. It felt like despite how good New England's defense was, they just could do nothing to contain him. Gotta love being in a city. Seriously, who died? What I was trying to say is during the commentary of this game, they were pointing out that he was just basically walking. He wasn't actually walking. He was still moving at a pretty... Oh my! All right, I'm pretty sure they stopped the bank robbery. So yeah, what I was trying to say though is during the commentary, Mike Tirico and Chris Collinsworth, they're basically talking about Kenneth Walker and how he was basically walking after getting the ball hinged off to him, and he wasn't actually walking. He was still moving at a pretty brisk pace. But for an NFL player, he was very slow, and he was just dissecting the defense, man, and it was beautiful. He was just slowing it down, and despite not recording a touchdown, he was clearly deserving of being the first running back in nearly 30 years to win a Super Bowl MVP. And I have one last little side tangent that doesn't actually relate to the players themselves. So first off, dirty confession. I don't actually mind Chris Collinsworth as a commentator. I don't think he's top of the line, but he's not bad, and when paired with Mike Tirico, they work pretty decently together. But I found him to be unbearable in this game. It's funny. There's some people complaining about, oh, the game sucks, the game was awful. There's other people complaining about the halftime show, which I think is ridiculous. Like, okay, if you don't understand it, I get that. I don't speak Spanish either. La Casa es Verde, that's the Spanish I know. But to me, the worst part of this game, it wasn't this halftime show, it wasn't the game itself, it was listening to Chris Collinsworth, man. It felt like he just was coming out here to just be as negative as possible. I saw someone point this out. In defensive games like this, there's not a lot going on offensively. There's not a lot Mike Tirico or Chris Collinsworth have to talk about. Okay, I get that. But I just feel like every single time this man was just giving out critique or questioning the motives of the players. I kind of wish I wrote some of them down now because I can't think of any at the top of my head, but let me know in the comments section if you also kind of got that vibe from it. I like a little bit of that's fine. Okay, I don't mind that at all. I think it's valid if the commentators kind of get into the minds of the players and kind of into the game. But I don't tune into a sporting event to listen to a commentator constantly give me their 2 cents on why Sam Darnold just did a mistake, okay? Especially not for 60 minutes. I do have to give Chris some credit, though. He saw the parlay and didn't mention Patrick Mahomes. Don't gamble, kids. Thank you all for watching, and if you enjoyed, please consider leaving a like, commenting, and subscribing, and also checking out this last video where I go over the NBA trade deadline. Have a great day, everybody.